Alright, welcome back to the show, guys. We are going to do a garage door install today, and yes, I'm wearing a sweatshirt because it is freezing cold and raining today. It's 80 degrees on Sunday and sunny, and now it's like 55, raining cold. So, got one door all installed. I had to do some fabrication on this because I've got that header up there, which I'll show you on this next door. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get all this down, and I will take you step by step on how to get this garage door installed. Now, if your door opening is already prepared, you don't have to worry about it. But what I want to do is I want to put aluminum up along here. You can see that I did that over here, and it just makes it look real nice. That'll eventually get wrapped. I have to rent a vendor to do that, so that's why that's not done. However, everything I need to have done, where bolts will go in, I do right now, because I like everything to be completely finished. I don't like the wood to be showing. That's just personal preference. So this is the time that you want to prepare your opening for however you would like it. Your rough opening is usually the size of your door. If anything, you could go a little bit smaller, and that'll help hold the door in there. But I usually don't have a problem keeping the door in there as I put it up. So I'm going to prepare all this by covering it with aluminum, and then we'll start putting the door sections up. You know what I find very difficult is when I'm sitting here working, and there's a tom turkey down in the woods just gobbling his head off. See, I just tuck it behind my trim, and then when I put my bolts through, it'll go right through that, and then when I put my steel up, my trim will run right along there, and it'll be a nice finished look. Now, I just have to do my top, and we'll be ready to put this door in. So as we get started on this garage door, this can be a little overwhelming. When you open the box and you see all that. So what I do is I get it out, kind of separate it into groups. These are the drums. Put those over there. That's for the garage door opener. So basically what I do is I separate this stuff into groups, and then that helps kind of minimize the overwhelming feeling that all this stuff has to go somewhere. Alright, so we kind of got stuff separated. I got like all the bolts and rollers and stuff in there. All this stuff here is going to be for the spring torsion bar. These are all the hinges, and then these are all the angles. And you'll notice that these have numbers on them. So what you want to do is group them into numbers. Those are 5s. Those are 6s. And those are 7s. They're different lengths here. And there's a reason for that. The shortest ones go at the bottom, the next longest go in the middle, and then the next longest go at the top. And that's so as your door opens, it can pull the door away from the opening. So the next thing that has numbers on it are these hinges. 5 number 1 hinges, 2 number 2s, and 3 number 3s. I'll explain that to you as we get going. Alright, so what I'm doing there is marking 2 1/4 inches out from the edge. So I make a series of marks all the way up the sides and across the top. But that's what those will look like once I get them in. So 2 1/4 is where I line this edge up. And the moldings I got have little holes in them, so these screws that I use work awesome. And then that seal will go up both sides and across the top. So what I typically do is put the top one in first and then put the side ones in. But that's what the door will look like once I get it finished. This top piece cut, and I got all my little trim screws started. And then we're going to put that up on top, seal this little flap going towards the door, and I'm going to line this edge up with that 2 1/4 inch mark that I made all the way around. Alright, just remember when you're cutting the bottom ones, there's a little angle there that you got to keep in mind. Just use a hacksaw to cut that and get a pretty good cut on it. Alright, so all of our outdoor seal is up. And I just use these little trim screws. They work really nice. You just run them in flush. And this trim I'm using actually has little indentations, so they're equally spaced. Once I get a dry day, I'll run a nice bead of silicone all along here. But now that I got this up, I'm gonna go ahead and put the door in. All right, so the first panel you're gonna deal with is the panel that goes on the bottom, which will have the rubber seal. So you just have to find the one with the rubber seal on it. So this will be the inside. Your door may look a little different depending on if you've got a non-insulated door. This is an insulated door that's finished on the inside. So got my first section ready. And everything with the garage door, you have to think that you're inside the garage looking out, and then you decide that's what dictates left and right. So as you're looking out of the garage, that's what's left and right. So the first things you're going to install are these cable holders. They will hold a roller, and they will also hold your lift cables. And they're marked. Typically, these are all marked. See, that one has an R on it. So that one will go on the other side, and this one has an L on it. And you can see these little slots right here, and you'll see the little slots there. You slide it in, and lift it up, and then 2 screws will go in there. Same thing with this side. There we go. All right, so a lot of all the hinges, you're going to use these bolts right here. But if I can give you any advice before you're starting your garage door install, read the directions step by step, and it'll tell you exactly which ones to use. All right, so the next step is to install hinges on your door. And if you look at these hinges, they'll usually have an arrow pointing up to indicate which way is up, which is helpful. So now that that's in there good, we're going to prepare our next section. So if you're trying to figure out which is the top part of your garage door is going to have this ridge, and then the next door will have a groove that will sit in. So this is my top. With your second one, your second section is going to have number 2 hinges on the ends, and in the middle is going to be number 1 hinges still. So depending on the width of your door, you might have 2 hinges in the middle. In my case, I only have 1. So I'm going to put a number 1 hinge in the middle and number 2 hinges on the outside. So one thing your directions are going to tell you is to hook your cables on down here. And you can do that, it's not a big deal, but I prefer to do it after the garage door is up. It's easy to thread it through the brackets and get it hooked on, and then I don't have these cables in my way as I'm building it. What I do is I'll take a 2x4, like in a situation like this, and I'll just put it right there. Screw that in, and that holds it tight. I'll put one on both sides. Perfectly level, so we're ready to prepare the third section. There's 4 sections. The next one will be just like this. The only difference is we had all number 1 hinges across the bottom. The second panel, you had number 2 hinges on the 2 outsides and number 1 in the middle. The third panel is going to have number 3 hinges on the outsides and a number 1 hinge in the middle. All right, this is the top and final section. So the only thing that I have to put on this prior to putting it up is these 2 pieces that go on each side. And this is so you can adjust your door to fit tight up against the jamb. So read the directions. Mine says to sit it down 3 inches, and usually there will be holes that line everything up. So 3 inches, that hole right there centers right there. And then if you look, there's 2 holes that line up there. So I just got to mount those on both sides, and then I can put this last section up. And then in my case, I have to put a stiffener across the top of this, and then my garage door opener bracket. And we'll do that once we get this up. All right, so this next piece I'm going to put on, this is, different doors are different and require different things. This is for the garage door opener to hook up to. Some doors you have to fabricate something. My door just came with this. The garage door opener bracket will hook up to this, and this will also give that opener good stability on my door so it won't damage it. So the way this works is the bottom bracket overlaps this hinge, so I got to take those 2 bolts loose and then put them through this, and then I can put a couple on the top. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add a stiffener all the way across this top section, which my door calls for with this window. That's going to vary from door to door depending on how wide it is, depending on whether it's got a window or not. So that's the stiffener I have to put on there. There's just a series of bolts or screws that go in there that hold it on there, and that stiffens that upper door. Now we're going to slide our rollers in. So So those are just gonna sit there, and then when we get our track will just kind of turn in there. So I put a brace up here, I'll get my track all ready, and then I'll pop those off, pop my track on, and get it screwed in place, and then this side of the door will be good and secure. And your garage door is gonna come with 2 separate pieces for both sides. And this right here, with the curve on it, is going to be the upper track. So that piece right there. And don't get yourself confused trying to figure out how to put brackets on this one, because they don't go on it. I've done that when I first started putting garage doors up. The first track you're gonna need are these individual ones right here. And typically they're gonna have similar holes on each end. Just make sure these oval ones, make sure you put those at the top. And the reason for that is that gives you the ability to adjust, to move your angle right here and line these up when it's time. So you can see it gives you play right here with these bolts to adjust this to make sure that this track lines up with this one. And those oval holes give you that ability. Now, my doors came with, I got a high lift extension piece that replaces the normal piece that goes in here. So I'll be putting those in, and what that does is it gets my garage door closer to the ceiling, which is what I wanted. And then that's where these brackets right here are going to come into play. All right, so the brackets are loosely put on there. I'm gonna get my lags and stuff ready, and then we'll go ahead and put these tracks up. All right, now that we got those out, we're just gonna slide this door, or this track, over these rollers. And then rotate it into place. I'm gonna take a 1/2 inch piece of plywood, and I space my track off the door about a 1/2 inch. Got the door spaced off with the plywood. So I like to put my bolt right in the middle. I should say you want your rollers about a 1/2 inch out of your hinges, no more than that. And then if your track's good and straight, you should have no problem. The door will open and close real nice. You see this part of the cable goes down, and it's going to hook on that little thing right there. So it's got to run behind all these hinges. So just drop it down and then hook it onto there. For the time being. All right, so this piece here is typically what you would put on top of your side track. So that's what that piece looks like, and you'd actually install it prior to putting the bottom track on. But if you buy the high lift piece, you can see there's this section of track here that will connect and lift the door up an additional foot before it makes a turn. So that's what I got. They can custom make these, but this one is a foot lift. As you can see, it'll lift it another 12 inches up. So my door will be about 9 inches from the ceiling instead of about 2 feet, roughly. But my problem is this hits that header, so I gotta cut a section off so it'll fit on there, and I'll show you how I have to do that. This is going to be specific to my job. Yours, depending on the type of header, most likely you won't have to do this, but if you do, this is how you would do it. So here's that extension. The tracks will line up. So you can see that will line up there. But you can see my problem here is I can't get it up against the wall because of that top part, so I'm going to cut that off, and then I have to weld a piece onto the upper track so I can get it good and secure, so I can bolt it to the header and down here and get it good and secure. So you can see how that one is. I cut it off right there, and then I welded that piece on there so I could bolt that in, and then my top spring bar and pulleys are all attached. So that's all good and secure. So that's what I'm fixing to do right here. So I'm not sure if that was helpful at all, but so once I tighten all these up, it'll pull all that in. I'm gonna go ahead and drill the hole up here to get a bolt in up here, and then that'll be good and secured, and we can put the upper tracks up. All right, so these are the pieces I cut off, if you remember, those high lift pieces. And in order to get the top track to be nice and stable, I'm going to weld them on here like so I can run a bolt into that header through there. And then there's another piece that comes down and attaches this, and it all makes sense once you see it. So I'm going to go ahead and weld these on there quick, and then we'll put them up. Alright, so now that's on there. When I mount that track, or the springs, that spring bracket will get connected to this, and then this will all be nice and solid. So I'm just going to snug these up. Alright, so one way to square this is to take your width there by your length there and find your diagonal, and then you can mark those spots. However, I got this first one squared off already, and I know it's square. I've opened and closed the door. I know the track's nice and square with this. So I'm just going to measure from there to there, which is 31 3/16, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here, and I will know where to put my track. Alright guys, so what I'm doing now is I just cut these 6 pieces, and what those are for my garage door. They're going to be my garage door hangers, and these do not ever come with any garage door that I've ever bought, at least. You have to buy this separate, and this is 1.25 inch angle with holes in it. You can get it at pretty much any hardware. You're just going to have to measure, depending on how high you're off your ceiling, will depend on how long you have to cut all these. But this right here is what I'm making, is that little triangle right there that will hook to the end of your track and hold your track up. So up. Just got a bolt there, then a bolt there to hold this triangle. I lagged it up into, there's a 2x6 that lays flat with a 2x4 on end up in the attic there that I screwed in. So that is very sturdy. and then I run a bolt through here into there and leave the bolt stick out, then the door can't ever come off the back end of the track. It should never get to this point, but if it does, that will stop it. So I just gotta square up and mount that one, and then the door itself will be installed, and then we have to do the springs and all the hardware. All right, the last step, now that we got the tracks in, is we want to adjust these top brackets, and you loosen these two nuts, which I've done, and then you want to push your door up against that like so it's up against the seal outside nice and tight. And then you want to pull this back so your roller is touching right here, and that way when the door comes down, it's going to apply pressure to this roller, which is going to push the door tight up against the seal. So there's one on each side, so you just got to do that. And then when this door opens, it's immediately going away. It's immediately going that way, so it's pulling the door away from the seal. But when it comes down and it stops, it pushes that up and seals it. So I got that where I need it. Now I just need to snug these back into place. All right, so now you can see when the door is all the way down, it's pushed up here against that seal. Now I just need to go over and do it over there, and I'll be all done. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that video. That's part one of two-part garage door install. We will tackle the spring system tomorrow, which is enough for an episode in itself, and I ran out of time today. So this will be out in the morning, which will be Wednesday, and I should have part two out Thursday morning if everything goes all right, which it should. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I will try my best to answer them.